Hey everybody, welcome to the patch 13.17 patch notes. I just said patch twice. With your host, Hashinshin, the host with the most, who's not yet a ghost. So in this patch, we've got a lot of things that people have been looking forward to, including some very significant buff to bruiser items to try to push the, well, bruisers back into being the meta and not just, weird lethality one-shot builds, as well as some adjustments to bruiser champions that should hopefully allow them to build more bruiser items and push them away from just using funny lethality one-shot builds. We've also got some nerfs to a lot of junglers that a lot of people are looking forward to, a buff to a jungler, which RIOT said they weren't going to do, and then they did anyway, and some new skins. So starting at the top and working our way to the bottom, up top we've got Aatrox. The way I'm going to describe these Aatrox buffs is the same way I would describe a birthday party. RIOT remembered my birthday party, and they did make a surprise party, and I got into the surprise party, and I said, oh boy, you remembered, and then they said, we forgot to give you any gifts or a cake, but we did remember your birthday, and I'm like, oh, cool, neat, I guess. I mean, it's cool, but like, the amount of work they put in here, I'll just say, maybe they could have done more work. So what they did is his passive is now magical damage, and his W is now magical damage. For those of you who don't understand how the game's mechanics work, every single champion in the game will have more armor than magic resist. By a lot, actually. So this, no matter how you look at it, this is going to be a buff. You can see Aatrox's armor at level 1 is 38, his magic resist is 32. That only gets more significantly different as the game goes on. His armor at level 18 is 113, his magic resist at level 18 is 66, nearly double the armor as the magic resist. For most champions, that will follow a similar pattern. In order for this to be a nerf, you would need to go Eclipse and Black Cleaver and Cyril does. And to be blunt, this basically means that this will be a buff in every given realistic situation. This also means that Aatrox will play better against Bramblevest, against tanks, stuff like that. I'm not sure he really needed to play better into tanks. His main issue right now seems to be champions like Yone, Irelia, Camille, who just sort of don't even stack armor, they just stack mobility and damage, and they just run you down. Aatrox is, of course, still, his pick rate is high, but he's still underperforming a good bit. It seems the nerf RIOT did hit him a little bit harder than they were going for, so they are looking to buff him up a little bit. Together with the buffs to bruiser items later on, this might be what he needs to be viable, but I'm going to be honest. I think the biggest problem facing Aatrox right now is there are so many Giga Mobile champions who run him down, who got overbuffed. Yone, Camille, Fiora, and Riven are all just sort of running him down. And although he's fine into tanks, and now he'll be even better into tanks, the issue is not tanks, the issue is his building into not tanks. Akshan is getting a change. They have a whole thing here. Basically, Akshan's itemization changed. They think he's doing too much damage now and not doing enough survivability right now. So what they are doing is they're changing him from, instead of having health growth, instead of having high damage growth at 3.5, well, high average damage growth, he will now have low damage growth at 3, but have higher armor and health growth. You know what I'm going to do for you guys? I'm going to play a Spotify thing so you guys can enjoy music in the background while I talk about all this. So basically, Akshan will do less damage but have more survivability. I'm going to be blunt, with the amount of damage that Akshan gets from his on-hit items, I think this is nothing but a very significant buff, because the only way you can beat Akshan is by one-shotting him. So by making him significantly harder to one-shot, he will be significantly more powerful. Akshan is, of course, not struggling at all. He is just unpopular. RIOT has recently said that they don't really think pick rate is tied to win rate that heavily. I think that's not true. Higher pick rate champions tend to have lower win rates just because more people are trying to first time them. But Akshan at any rate is not struggling at all. So I'm going to be honest here. I think this is probably a little bit too much from RIOT. I think they might have to tile this back, but he will definitely be significantly tankier now. And that's probably going to be too much. Blitzcrank is getting a plethora of changes. Oh boy, I said I would go over this in the patch notes. When I did my video originally, on like the patch preview, I said, oh, I'll do this in the actual patch notes. I was like, future Hashinshin, you got this. Now I'm looking back at past Hashinshin and being like, you bastard. Okay, so now we have to go through all of this. Okay, so Blitzcrank is getting more base magic resist, more base health, but his base attack speed and attack speed ratio are going significantly down. So he will attack slower, but he'll be tankier, particularly against magic damage. His passive, Mana Barrier, is going to be much tankier early game, but squishier in the late game. That helps out support Blitzcrank, because I'm assuming it'll equal out at about 30% at level 10. Level 10 is I'm not going to say the upper end for supports, but that's typically, level 10 is about where supports tend to be, like in the mid game. Other champions can get to like level 13, 14, but supports end up typically at level 10. Overdrive is going down in mana cost. Its attack speed is also going down. The amount of damage his E does is going up, meaning instead of 75% AD, it's going to 100%. The mana cost is also going down, and is losing its bonus damage to non-champions. His ultimate is now gaining a mana ratio on the passive damage. So this means that support Blitzcrank is significantly more powerful now, and jungle Blitzcrank is being murdered. One thing that Riot noticed is they made Blitzcrank really complicated. One of the problems is they made him very complicated, as in he had to now understand how to like clear the jungle for his AD carry. He wasn't being played in the jungle. He was just doing things like he would power fist to like leash level 1 stronger. He would do objectives stronger. He could get Gromp and Krugs for his buddy, his laner, his AD carry better. And this kind of made him like complicated, but in like a weird way. The thing that Riot tends to do very stupidly is they tend to make champions more complicated, but in ways that aren't really fun. Like, is it fun as Blitzcrank that now you can go clear Krugs for your AD carry better? It's not fun. It's like interesting maybe, but it's not exactly like, if I'm playing Blitzcrank, that's not exactly what I want to be doing with my time. If I have spare time, I want to be like running the mid lane or running the top lane and trying to get hooks, right? I don't want to be like, okay, we got spare time, and you like and you quick run over to Krugs to get your AD carry an extra 100 gold. Like, it's neat, but it's not exactly like my fantasy from the champion, right? It's like oh god, a good example of this is back in the day when they buffed up Darius really hard for jungling. And then the problem was when they buffed up Darius for jungling, it made one of his only weaknesses as a top laner. He was one of the only top laners that couldn't really clear the jungle. Most other top laners had bonus damage to jungle or mechanics that made them strong at jungling, like Jax's Counter-Strike. And so other top laners could like push the wave and then go clear the jungle to get an advantage on Darius. But once they allowed Darius to clear the jungle, his win rate spiked. Like, that's the thing. Top lane Darius's win rate went up by like 1.5% because they made him better at jungling. Because it removed one of his weaknesses. I'm going on to a long-winded rant here, I assure you. But basically, support Blitzcrank will be much stronger. Not at dealing like lots of auto attacks. Not at clearing the jungle. Not at being tanky late game. Not at attacking very quickly. But he'll be much stronger at doing what I think people want to do with him. Which is hooking people, hitting his passive a few times, and popping the ult and pew pew. Elise is being buffed because they said that they were no longer going to be buffing junglers. So here we are, and now they're buffing junglers, which is great. I think Riot has a good track history of sticking to their guns for almost one patch. So here we are, buffing another jungler. Okay. Her passive Spiderlings now have 2 more base damage. Her passive Spiderlings also heal 2 more HP by default. If you want me to be honest here, I think what Riot could really do, cancel all these other buffs, because like this stun duration is stupid, this bonus magic damage on basic attacks is stupid. I think one thing Riot could do is try to push Elise to be more useful, like as an off-tank kind of bruiser champion, like how she used to be. And I think one thing they could do is make the on-hit healing on basic attacks scale much harder. So like, let's say instead of the 6 to 12 it is now, maybe it's like 6 to 20 per Spiderling attack, right? And then she can build tankier or do stuff like that. Because I don't think full AP Elise one-shot, like it's hard to play because you have to one-shot people. And I'm not saying you can't one-shot people, but like you're basically playing, like once Elise gets to mid to late game, you're basically playing shitty Evelynn. And there's nothing you can do about that. Oh, but Elise is supposed to be an early game champion. Right, but if she's strong early game, then she's overpowered. So what I'm saying is, why not, instead of like boosting her damage, why not instead of like giving her this weird like giga 2.4 second like mega stun, maybe instead of doing that, you just like let her heal more in the late game so she could do things like a Spirit Visage or a Frozen Heart better and be more usable as kind of like a team fighting, not exactly an assassin, but, you know, kind of like an off bruiser, kind of like in a Renekton sort of situation. Maybe not as good as Renekton because she's much more powerful early game, but, you know, give it the option to kind of, you know, keep herself sustained up throughout a team fight while kind of skirmishing a bit. I guess that's the way to put it, skirmishing. Gnar is getting buffed because Riot wants to make sure every ranged top laner is top tier, because they hate you, they hate me especially. I can tell you that they hate me a lot. And yeah, so the amount of damage that Mega Gnar's Boulder Toss is doing is going up by 20. He's doing 20 more damage on that, so it will now be 45 plus 140% AD at rank 1, which is a significant amount. It will also be 45 plus 100% AD on his Wallop at rank 1, which is once again a rather significant amount. So Mega Gnar will now be extraordinarily damaging and might even win most of his early game all-ins. Yeah. So then we have Hecarim. Hecarim is one of the champions they're adjusting to try to build more bruiser-ish, more bruiser-esque, more bruisery. Okay. So the base mana is going up from 277 to 280. 280 base mana, which is not really that significant, but 3 more. Mana growth is going from 60 to 40. So the amount of mana he gets per level is going down. The base mana regeneration is going from 6.5 to 7. So he'll have less mana as he levels up, more mana regen as he levels up, and his mana regeneration growth is also going up. I said that twice. Okay, so basically, Hecarim in his base kit will have, you know, I should just say all the changes at once to clarify all this. So basically, he gets a little bit more base mana. This is like insignificant. Basically, the amount of mana he has in his kit, I'm being like so stupid in saying this. Hecarim's base mana is going down, but the mana cost on his Q is going down. Their justification for this is Hecarim's current builds are very squishy. He's starting to adopt Spirit Ocean, which is great, but is still building Duskblade and Manamune. First up, we're trying to lower his reliance on Manamune. If he continues to build it, it'll provide less damage. If he doesn't build it, his mana issues won't be nearly as severe. By not having to build Manamune, he should be open to buy other fighter items instead. Additionally, Hecarim's current best item is Spirit Ocean, which is getting buffed this patch. We expect him to gain quite a bit of power from systemic changes, so attacking him with a preemptive nerf to his self-healing. He'll more than make up for it with the bonus health he'll receive from other items, but we'll make sure if he lands in a good spot to follow up is necessary. So basically, the amount of mana to cast Hecarim's abilities is going way down, but his base mana is going down, way down. Everybody get that? Okay. Then his self-healing, instead of 25% plus 2% of 100 AD, is going to 20% flat with no scaling whatsoever. So that is a rather significant nerf, in my opinion. But we'll see. Being able to use other items without running out of mana might be good. I think Riot is being a bit afraid, but maybe they are right to be a bit afraid. They are buffing Spirit Ocean, and they are buffing, they're buffing Spirit Ocean, which Hecarim loves as an item. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. This overall is one of the more confusing changes they did. It seems a little bit like they put a lot of thought into it. I'm not exactly sure it's going to pay off, but I think it might pay off. Having less mana reliance will mean he won't need to build mana items, and being able to build like a Spirit Ocean Divine Sunderer and not run out of mana will be quite a good deal. Okay, for Kayn, the amount of AD ratio on Kayn's W is going down. Instead of a, he's losing 5 base damage, and the bonus AD is going from 1.3% to 1.1%. So, yeah, basically Kayn's W will hit for a good chunk less damage. Kayn now restores himself to maximum health and mana upon transforming into Shadow Assassin or Darkened Slayer. Cool, I guess. Not really that big a deal, but okay. Kha'Zix is losing AD ratio on his Q from 115% bonus AD to 110% bonus AD. It's not like the biggest deal in the world. I mean, it's a little bit of a nerf, and if Kha'Zix doesn't kill you, then he needs to stand next to you, which obviously is not good for him. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. The thing is, Kha'Zix is quite significantly overpowered right now. Quite significantly. So, I'm not quite sure that a 0.05% AD ratio nerf on his Q is going to go far enough. As they continue to nerf other junglers as well, the other junglers who could maybe potentially do good into Kha'Zix are, well, gonna get weaker as well. So Kha'Zix might not even lose win rate. So I think Riot should have maybe gone a little bit further on this nerf. One thing in particular, I think, is that maybe the cast time on his Q should go up a little bit, or maybe he shouldn't be able to use it while leaping, maybe. There's definitely some issues with Kha'Zix. He's a little bit aggressive right now. Aggressively overpowered, that is. Talking about aggressively overpowered, let's bring up Kindred. So if we look at Masters Plus, Kindred has been giga busted for like 3 months now. She's like possibly the most broken champion in the game, and has been for like 3 months. Riot has basically done absolutely nothing to nerf her, and keep excusing it by being like, oh man, whatever. So, oh boy, this tooltip is really big. Okay, so basically, instead of her mounting dread having 8% missing health base damage, it now has 5% missing health base damage. Instead of slowing for 50%, it now slows for 30%. Once again, much like the Kha'Zix change, Kindred is kind of aggressively overpowered. Way more so than Kha'Zix ever was, by the way. She's like insanely goddamn overpowered to the point of like absurdity. And I think one of the biggest issues is her base resistances, her base survivability is just way too high. To be blunt, I think she's just like way too survivability-ish, which allows her to do those weird builds where she goes Trinity into Black Cleaver into Sterix Gauge. I know she doesn't really have that much armor, but I still think she has too much armor. Particularly once you factor in her ultimate, once you factor in post durability update that she has a good amount of health, I think Kindred is just frankly too survivable. Now you could say it's because of her base damage, and yeah, I mean a lot of it is because of her base damage, but the reason her base damage is this high is because Riot has giga buffed her base damage over and over and over again. So I think at a certain point, Riot needs to make a decision, should Kindred really still have this much base damage? If she's going to be this survivable, and she's going to be this damaging, then she's just going to dominate the game, particularly with how good her early game is. Now, her slow going from 50% to 30% will make her ganks a little bit weaker, but you have to remember part of the problem is she's a range champion. So she just hops into lane, she just hops after you, slows you, autos, hops, autos, hops, autos, you're dead. Like, yeah, they're nerfing her a little bit, but I mean, the champions had 53-54% win rate for like 3 months. I think we can, I think Riot, maybe instead of like doing like little insignificant nerfs, we can like actually stop these like giga broken champions from being giga broken. Okay, so for Lux, they're trying to push Lux mid, and they're trying to push down Lux bot. Okay, so Lux's mana regen is going from 8 to 7, so she gets 1 less mana every 5 seconds in bot lane. The amount of damage her passive does is going from 20 to 90 to 30 to 200. So it's 10 base damage and a 0.05% more AP ratio. So if Lux hits you with abilities and doesn't hit you with the passive, she'll have less mana to do it. In addition, Light Binding is going from an 11-second cooldown to an 11 to 9-second cooldown. So if you max it, you will be much stronger. And in addition to that, her E is losing 5 base damage. I'm assuming for Riot, the goal here is to make Arcane Comet Lux poking much weaker. By giving her less mana regen, by giving her less damage and Lucent Singularity, I'm assuming the goal is to make her poke less powerful. The problem here, and this is just my opinion, the buffs to her passive and the buffs to her Q will probably offset this entirely. In addition, I think Riot as we've seen with the Elise change, continues to giga buff CC. We're now seeing that Lux's 2-second root will be on a 9-second cooldown, which is going to get rather aggressively frustrating late game. I'm going to keep using that word. And with tenacity being nerfed across the board on every single item, I don't think Riot quite realizes what that means for the game. They can't just continue to buff all CC in the game when there's basically no tenacity anymore after it's been slashed into the ground to deal with it. Naafiri is getting, I'm going to say nerfed across the board because she's getting nerfed across the board. I don't really think there's a better way to put it. Her base health is going down. The cooldown on getting more like wolves is going up. So it'll take 5 more seconds on every single wolf. And the doggos take 100% bonus damage from melee attacks. So melee attacks will one-shot the doggos. That is one thing I noticed when I was fighting against Naafiri that kind of annoyed me. I think it was like level 2 or 3, her doggos got just enough health to need 2 melee attacks to kill, which made it quite frustrating trying to play melee against her. Because when you're trying to keep her dogs down, to keep her from like, you know, being able to do those combos and stuff, it, like, you had to like run up and like attack, then run up and attack, and it just took so long that it seemed like the best way to play against her was to just try to one-shot her, to not really play around the dogs. I think pet champions, one thing Riot needs to realize, the gameplay should always be that pet champions need to defend their pets, but in return, if they defend their pets and they keep them damaging you and they fight you, that they end up stronger. That's true with Yorick. If we've seen with Yorick, Yorick needs to defend Maiden, but if he can keep Maiden alive and he can attack you, then he generally ends up stronger. And that's always kind of been his balance. And I think that's one of the better ways to do it. One of the worst ways to do it is like how Naafiri is now before this nerf and how Heimerdinger is, where their pets are basically unkillable. And so the only real way to fight them is to just run them down and try to one-shot them. Because that removes a lot of gameplay and makes things significantly less interesting. Okay, so Naafiri's Q is also losing some damage. The recast minimum damage is going down by 5. The AD ratio is almost going down by half. The recast maximum damage is going up by, down by 10 as well. So the amount of recast damage that Naafiri's Q has is just going down considerably. The amount of healing she gets on the recast is also going down. At rank 5, she will lose 20 HP. Then her E is, I believe this is getting nerfed again. Yep, the bonus AD ratio on her E is going down, and the flurry physical damage. It's basically her AD ratios across the board are getting hit. Her base damage is getting hit. She will have less doggos, and her doggos will take more damage from melee. This is a problem that Riot has had with a lot of these sorts of champions with many sources of damage. The problem is when you give a champion a source of damage, and then you like add a second source of damage and a third source of damage and then a fourth source of damage, it can be hard for riders to track how much damage that champion is actually going to do. So then what ends up happening is you have champions like Naafiri, who Riot looks at them and they're like, okay, well, we've given them kind of low AD ratios, we should be fine. But then they hit you with a Q. Oh, but wait, the Q recasts. Oh, it does more damage on the recast. Oh, then the dogs run up. Oh, but then the dogs do more damage when you do this. Oh, and then Naafiri gets to attack. Oh, which makes the dog, you know, blah, 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 blah. One of the most offensive examples of this is Qiyana. For the longest time, people didn't understand how Qiyana was one-shotting people with such low AD ratios. A 0.75 AD ratio, a 0.3 AD ratio, 0.75 AD ratio. They're very, very low AD ratios, right? But the problem is that because Qiyana could hit you with an ult, and she could hit you with an E, and she could hit you with her Q, and her Q procced her passive, and she could use her W to reset her Q to hit you with 2 Qs, right? Like, because she could do all this, and she could sneak in extra attacks, and if she attacked you with a held element, oh wait, that did bonus magic damage, blah, 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 blah. The problem quickly started becoming that because Qiyana wasn't just hitting you with like 1 attack, she was hitting with like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attacks in the span of like 2 seconds. It meant that all these small sources of damage were adding up. So Qiyana had to get all her AD ratios nerfed. Much like that is what's happening to Naafiri. Naafiri has to get all her AD ratios nerfed because, shockingly, a champion who, you know, even these small AD ratios from the little doggos, you know, if you have 5 doggos attacking, those small AD ratios times 5, then you're multiplying them, then you're adding more damage to them, you know, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot going on with Naafiri, and I don't think Riot properly added it up. Okay. Orianna, her health growth is going up, and the base damage and command dissonance is going up. Command dissonance is getting 10 to 30 damage, and she's getting 5 more health per level. Riot says, quote, "We don't want to give Orianna back her armor and magic resist." because that would lead to less pro play kills. We hate it when pro play doesn't kill each other, even though they rarely do. So basically, Orianna is super squishy early game, so they gave her more damage. Everybody got it? Cool. Quinn! Okay, so what's going on with Quinn? Quinn's getting more health growth by 8, but she's losing 20 damage on her rank 5 Q, and she's losing 20 damage on her rank 5 E. Riot says, while also giving her enough baseline durability to not get one shot when someone closes a gap on her. I think one thing that Riot forgot here when making this patch note, Quinn, if she doesn't get one shot, will permakite you and kill you. Every single time she procs her passive, every single time she does anything, she gets 40% movement speed. And then her E, if she can use her E again, her E is an 8-second cooldown at max with a 50% slow. Quinn can permakite every single champion of the game and actually does pretty good damage with her 60% attack speed, her chain proccing her passive, and all that. I think one thing that Riot doesn't seem to realize is that if you cannot one-shot a permakiting champion, that they're not really given any counterplay. And that just means that you have to build more and more damage to be able to one-shot them. For example, if I'm playing Renekton and I can't one-shot her with my E into W, then she's just going to permakite me and kill me between my E cooldowns. If I'm playing Jax and she volts me out of my leap strike and I can't, for example, try to one-shot her with some sort of counter-strike play, then she's just gonna permakite me, right? Does everyone get that? If I'm playing Aatrox, like my cooldowns are gonna be down and she's just gonna be permakiting. If Riot really wanted to balance her a bit better, they maybe should have done something about her permakiting. Maybe made her movement speed decaying. Maybe made her slow less bad, you know, things like that. Maybe make Volt less of a dangerous option. Once again, with the Akshan thing, I think when you remove a champion's only counterplay, you need to think of how that acts. Yes, they're less powerful when they're acting like at their strongest, but now they're more powerful when they're acting at their weakest. And when they're acting at their strongest, they can't be beat by anyone. When they're acting at their weakest, when they're being one-shot, that's when you can actually beat them. So you're kind of like removing people's ability to beat these champions. Okay. Samira's getting 30 base health. I don't really have anything to say here. Just Samira's getting more base health. Everybody get it? Okay, cool. Tryndamere. Tryndamere is... oh, boy. Okay, so Tryndamere's auto attack range is going from 125 to 175. Even Riot promised it was only going to be 150. They lied. Riot lied, and she believed. So Riot said, oh no, the range will only be 150. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Only 150. Then they went ahead and pushed it to 175, but they said it's okay. We're reducing his base damage by 4. The problem here that I don't think Riot realizes, with lethal tempo being so broken and still giving 1,500 gold at level 1, it means that the only counterplay to champions like Tryndamere and Jax is to kite them out. You can't fight them in melee anymore. You can't really trade like attacks with them anymore. They get 1,500 gold in stats at level 1. This means that the more range on Tryndamere makes it significantly harder to kite him out, meaning he'll get more attacks in, meaning you won't be able to kite him as easily, which obviously makes him significantly stronger. Losing 4 base damage might hurt a little bit, but here's the problem with that. Tryndamere doesn't really care about the early game. Not really. Like, if he kills you, he'll just continuously E on you, and 4 damage isn't going to stop him from just like spinning on you repeatedly to go for full health combos, because he has 1,500 gold in lethal tempo. But he can just do second wind, door, and shield and spam his Q to heal up against any champion who could possibly hurt him. 175 range allows him to attack through turrets, which makes him significantly less able to actually lose. 175 range means he can attack over a turret. This is what I was talking about in my patch preview. I said do not give him 175 range. Riot, you clearly do not understand what you're doing. As a company, you don't understand what you're doing. And now they did it, after saying they weren't going to do it. So cool, right? Cool. You know better than everyone, I'm sure. Twisted Fate is getting more AP ratio on his Q because Twisted Fate's AP ratios suck. So if you get hit by his wild cards, it will do damage. That's about it. I don't really see anything else. Vex. Vex is getting 10 more damage on her Q, and her W cooldown is going down. Instead of continuously throwing more damage into Vex, to just like undo the durability update slowly and surely. I think the best thing that they could do as a company, this is just my opinion, I think the best thing that they could do is, why don't they just make it so her cooldowns are a bit lower? Like, yeah, okay, going from 20 to 12 to 16 to 12 is good, and that's good, but I think one of the things they did that was good was reducing her Q cooldown. Her Q cooldown used to be longer because she could burst everyone. So now it's down to 4 seconds, which is the average cooldown for a spammable nuke. I think that's good. Her W cooldown going down, that's her shield and her magic damage. I think they could even gone further than that. Why not go 16 to 10? I know I've said this before. Undo this damage buff and make this cooldown 16 to 10. Give her more shield in the late game. I really do not understand, particularly in the late game, why Riot thinks they need to like make sure no one is survivable. Like, oh no, if people have shields, the game will be ruined. Like, I don't understand it, because like the thing is, once you get to late game, everyone dies in 2 or 3 auto attacks anyway. Like, everyone's just instantly imploding in the late game right now. So I don't understand why they're so afraid of making champions like a little bit tankier into the late game. They're always like, let's give them more base damage. That's what we need, more base damage. Okay, so Vi is another bruiser getting some large updates to try to make her more viable. That's not a pun, I just said that. So basically, they want Vi building actual bruiser items and not building funny lethality one-shot builds. So in order to do that, her passive is going from 10% max health to 12% max health, which isn't even where it used to be, but that's fine, I guess. The amount of cooldown reduction she gets on her passive from her W is going from 3 to 4, so she'll get more passives and they'll shield for more. The cooldown on her Relentless Force at rank 1 is going down from 14 to 12. That's actually more significant than you think, by the way. It allows her to jungle better. It allows her to get 2 E's up for a gank better. Then her Cease and Desist is losing a large amount of its damage, from 150 to 500 damage to 150 to 400 damage. And the AD ratio is going from 1.1% to 90%, which is a rather significant nerf to its damage. So Vi will do less damage, but she will be more survivable. So I'm assuming that in Riot's mind, the idea here is Vi will go back to some sort of Divine Slenderer, Sterak's, maybe Spirit build, with Spirit getting buffed later on. Xerath is getting nerfed or buffed, whatever you want to call it. Basically, the mana cost on his W is going up from 70 to 110 to 80 to 120, so it's going up by 10. The cooldown refunded on unit kill for his passive is going from 2 seconds to 2.5. Then his base mana regen is going down from 8 to 6.85. So his W will cost more mana, he will have less mana regen, but he will get more passives if he actually kills minions to then use his passive. Assuming that this is trying to keep solo lane Xerath about on par with where he is right now, but they're trying to nerf support Xerath. I'm assuming one thing Riot is trying to do is trying to nerf support Lux and support Xerath to try to stop mages who just poke with slows and arcane comment from just sort of poking people out of the lane. Because especially what that does is it just adds another mage to each team that adds way more damage. So instead of an enchanter or even a tank to peel or shield, you just get another mage trying to burst people, which significantly increases the amount of damage each team has. Okay, Xin Chao is getting a pretty significant buff here. Instead of his heal being 6 to 74, then a really insignificant AD ratio, it's now just 3 to 4% health. That's it. So, they say they're making him heal more, but I'm going to be honest. Here's the issue, in my opinion. The amount he will heal more isn't significant enough. I think they should have gone further. Xin Chao is not really doing right. He's not really doing good at all right now. Like, he's not really like that amazing of a champion. And I don't think that a small buff to the amount of healing on his passive by making it scale in health is what he needed. Yes, it makes him better with like Gore Drinker again. It makes him better with Trinity. It makes him better with Sterak's Gauge, Spirit Ocean, that sort of stuff. But the problem, in my opinion, is that he's not really that good right now as is, and I doubt this is going to be enough to bring him back. Zoe is getting buffed because she is a very, very powerful champion, and Riot loves Zoe being viable. There's something about Riot and Zoe that just they really seem to like that champion, like a lot. So as we can see here, Zoe's win rate is a solid 51.94% win rate. Much like Akshan, she needs to be buffed, question mark? So her base health regen is going from 6.5 to 7.5 because Zoe is a premier lane bully who needed to lane bully even harder with bruiser levels of base survivability. Then her sleepy time bubble is going from 20 to 30% magic resist reduction to 30% flat. So basically Zoe needed to be better at killing tanks and she needed to be better at bullying the lane. Cool, I guess. Bloodthirster is being nerfed. Instead of getting the damage above 50% health, you're getting it above 70% health. Because as I keep saying, AD carries are the dumbest people on the planet, who routinely and consistently underestimate the strength of their items. This time around, we got the supremely stupid idea from AD carries that an item that gives like 95 damage was actually secretly a bad item. The thing is, if an AD carry is below 50% health, the majority of the time they're probably going to die. Sometimes they can turn it back and sometimes they can heal, but the majority of the time if they're below 50% health, they're probably going to die. So the issue is whenever they were at full health, which is the majority of fights, because AD carries don't tend to take damage until they die, for the majority of fights, the AD carry would be doing absolutely silly amounts of damage for free without having to stack it up with Sterax while also getting crit, which is something that AD carries refuse, in my opinion, to acknowledge. The fact that crit on their items is a damage multiplier. They seem to look at crit as if they're owed it, like it should just be on their items for free. They look at an item like Bloodthirster and they're like, okay, it gives 95 damage and lifesteal. Is that even good? And I'm like, well, it gives 95 damage and 20% crit and lifesteal. Why? You know, it's like AD carries don't acknowledge that crit is a real thing that exists and is actually quite powerful. Duskblade is being reworked a little bit. You will now take damage in Duskblade. So if you're being ignited or if you have Malzahar's aids on you or things like that, you'll still take damage. But it will now destroy incoming projectiles when it's triggered. So it will now be a little bit stronger and a little bit weaker. I'm not really sure. Overall, it should be a buff and a nerf. I'm not really sure. Even Shroud is being nerfed because they made Yasuo way too goddamn tanky. And unfortunately, because Riot can never admit a mistake ever, literally ever, they can literally never ever admit a mistake. When they decided to increase Yasuo's base shield to encourage him to build crit, instead of building crit, he just built Even Shroud and then used his giant shield to then use Even Shroud's base armor and magic resist to make that giant shield a giga unbreakable shield. So now Riot is going, are we wrong? Did we make Yasuo really tanky? No, Even Shroud must be the problem. This continues Riot's horribly stupid dumbass trend of anytime a tank item gets built on a champion who's not supposed to be using it, they don't look at that champion and analyze why they're using tank items. They just immediately nerf the tank item. This is why tank items are so goddamn weak and why nobody even bothers to build them anymore. See, back in the day when champions like Echo or Yasuo were building tanky, what Riot would do is they would look at the champions and they would go, okay, I think the problem here is they're doing too much sustained damage. So if they build tanky with that sustained damage, the massive amount of sustained damage will outperform the loss of damage they get from not building items. So then they can keep that sustained damage, build tanky, and then just, you know, DPS check people to death. Now they look at that and they go, no, tank items must be the fault at all points in time. Can't be lethal tempo. No, can't be lethal tempo Yasuo doing absolutely nutty amounts of base damage. No, sir. Can't be the fact that we giga buffed his base shield, so now items like Even Shroud are even stronger with that base shield. No, it has to be Even Shield's problem. You did not know this, but all tanks building Even Shroud, they were secretly overpowered this entire time. It wasn't Yasuo at all. No, sir. Gore Drinker is being buffed. The health is going from 300 to 400, which is a good amount of increase, but it will no longer build out of Warhammer, and it now builds out of Phage. I think overall this is arguably a nerf, depending on how you look at it. For some champions it's a buff, for some champions it's a nerf. It's a bit hard though, because one of the problems here is that if you want to build a lot of damage to like try to bully your laning phase, you'd have to go whip, but not every bruiser can effectively use whip to its fullest. Some, like Renekton, obviously can, but some, like Darius, don't actually want to be using whip as their damage item. So then you're forced into phage, which is unfortunately like 1100 gold for 15 damage. This means champions like Aatrox actually don't really like the build path of Gore Drinker now. It's not like terrible, but if I'm playing Aatrox and I want to bully the laning phase, I don't really have a choice here. Particularly with the fact that Aatrox, you know, now has higher AD ratios and lower base damage. I'm just throwing that out there because I definitely think this is like a buff to Gore Drinker going up 100 health, but I don't think, like, the problem is it should probably have been like Warhammer plus Phage plus Kindle Gem, because Iron Spike Whip is not this amazing item that Riot thinks it is. After they nerfed it like 900 times, it is not really that good. Immortal Shield Bow is going up. It's basically its shield early game will be stronger, its shield late game will be weaker. That's all I have to say. Immortal Shield Bow, stronger early game, or sorry, not weaker late game. The same late game, stronger early game. Everybody get it? Okay. So it's buffed early game, the same late game. Okay. Spear Sojourn is being buffed rather significantly. The total cost of the item is unchanged. Everybody note that. The build path is now weaker. It's now Warhammer Pickaxe Kindle Gem instead of Warhammer BF Sword Kindle Gem. That's to kind of weaken its build path a little bit, so, or maybe make it more buildable early game. It really depends on how you look at it, right? But basically what I think they want is they don't want you to be able to like get a BF Sword and then build that into a Spear Sojourn, or maybe they want you to build a pickaxe and not have to save up for a Spear or a BF Sword. I don't really know what they're doing here. But basically what they want is this item to be way more first itemable, and they want it to be second itemable for sure. So basically the attack damage is going from 65 to 60, but the health is going from 350 to 500. Then the amount of ability haste you get from its Dragon Force passive is being doubled baseline, but the AD ratio is being halved. I think Riot did the numbers. At 200 damage, it's the same attack ability haste. Above 200 damage, you have less ability haste. So it gives more ability haste early game, particularly at the first or second item. Potentially even third item, but that one's a bit not true. So at first or second item, it gives more ability haste. At 3, it gives about the same. At 4+, it gives less. But with this big buff to its health, going to 500, Spear Sojourn will definitely be built in more builds, hopefully, and also be way more buildable for champions like Darius, Olaf, Garen, etc. Champions who actually need a health item that gives them movement speed if they're low on health. They should hopefully also allow Garen to have a build that isn't this completely weird giga damage build with like Mortal Reminder and stuff. He'll probably still do it, but it'll pass. It also means that Darius can go Spear Sojourn, which is something he obviously wanted to do. It just hasn't really been for him. Static Shiv is getting its AP ratio nerfed from 30% AP to 15% AP. Man wonders why there's even an AP ratio left on the item. Riot, apparently, I think we're finally at the point where Riot is just so goddamn stubborn, they refuse to remove the AP ratio. They just literally can't bring themselves to admit an AP ratio on an AD item was stupid, that some champions like LeBlanc can abuse the shit out of Static Shiv. The problem is right now LeBlanc is such a good auto attacker. The problem is she has no AD ratios, right? But once you add in Static Shiv, she can now get an item that gives her amazing wave clear and scales with her other AP items and makes her auto attacks really good. Because remember, it's got crit and it has damage. Crit and damage, those are 2 damage effects, okay? So as we've seen, LeBlanc just uses her W and runs in and out of combat while constantly auto attacking people to actually add up to pretty good amounts of damage. Okay. Stridebreaker is being buffed from 300 health to 375. No other changes. They say it is solidly more durable than Trinity Force, but it only has 75 more HP. I don't think 75 HP is a solid more durable. That's like a little bit more durable. Futures Market is being nerfed because they made the mage item really overpowered. The Lost Chapter is really overpowered, and when you can just rush it with Futures Market, it's too much. Rather than nerf Lost Chapter, they've decided to nerf Futures Market. Riot once again, Riot has this huge history of just doubling down on stupidity. Like, they'll make a stupid mistake Like, they'll just make Lost Chapter way too cheap, and then they'll be like, no, it can't be that we made Lost Chapter too cheap. It must be Futures Market. That rune that's been in the game since the introduction of the runes rework. It was secretly overpowered over the last 5 years, and nobody noticed it. They're saying junglers, but we all know why. Catch-up XP is being nerfed. So basically the thing is, right now, if the average level in the game was, let's say, 2.1. Well, let me put it this way, okay? Junglers will get catch-up XP if they're below the average level. So if the average level is 3 and they're 2, then they get catch-up XP up to level 3. Do you get it? The problem right now is it rounds up completely. If the average level is 2.1, then it counts that as 3. So then if you have, like, if everyone in the game is level 2 except the top laner is level 3, so the average level is like 2.2, then the jungler gets catch-up XP. Now, it's not obviously like that, like, ludicrous, so to speak, because like in the early game the jungler will be a higher level, but it means that the jungler can quick get level 3, gank spam, get catch-up XP to 4, gank spam, get catch-up XP to 5, gank spam, get catch-up XP to 6, and just sort of continuously proceed like that. It just yeah, it's a good thing. Right now what they're doing is they're making it so it doesn't round up. Yeah, they're making it so it rounds up only at, like, it will only round up to level 3 if it's 2.5. So 2.4 and below will round down to 2, which should hopefully mean that junglers can't just stay like a fraction of a level behind, and then just because like the top laner leveled up once, they should no longer get catch-up XP. I've been making fun of catch-up XP for so long, I literally forgot that this is still something that annoys the shit out of me. Like, I've been complaining about it for so much for so long that I literally forgot that this is something that is even still in the game. I just had to get used to it. I just had to get used to junglers being able to gank, fail to gank, gank, fail to gank, gank, fail to gank, go back in the jungle, get a level, gank, ooh, 1 gank succeeded, go back in the jungle, and all of a sudden they're level 5 to you're level 5, and you're just like sitting there like, how? Added a patience bar and leashing range indicator to all dragons. Everybody got that? Okay. Dragons now have a patience bar and leashing range indicator. Cool. ARAM adjustments, Blue Essence Emporium, new champion illustrated items for 250 RP. Give money to Riot, please, please. I mean, don't actually. I'm trying to fix a bug that caused heal to not grant movement speed to the ally healed. That feels more significant. Huh. That feels way more significant than just a small bug fix. That was actually... Well, I mean, everyone's gone on to Ghost anyway. No one uses heal anymore because they nerfed it into the ground. But, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Fixed a bug that would allow Aerie to provide vision as it's heading back to the base. Oh, that's funny. Fixed a bug that causes Silas's E abduct to not CC opponents for the proper duration. Is this going to be like the Ornn change? Where they're like, Ornn's knockups should now CC for the proper duration. And then the duration is like double. And then the champion's win rate just goes up by like 5%. Please don't tell me it's going to be like that. Please don't tell me like his E is CCing you for like 0.1 seconds. And they're like, oh, it should be CCing you for 0.5. And all of a sudden, he's just like bursting people down in a 0.5 second knockup. Like, Riot, I beg you, please don't tell me that's what's going to happen. I've been here before. If the same thing happens here as what happened with Ornn, don't do that. Fixed a bug that caused Font of Life to not trigger Lucian's passive Light Slinger. I don't think that was a bug. I think that was an intentional design decision. And I think that this is now going to significantly buff the champion, right? I don't think that's a good idea. I don't know about this one, Riot. I don't know about this one, Riot. That means that Lucian will trigger his Light Slinger every time he attacks an opponent, but by attacking opponents, he uses Light Slinger. So long as you have Font of Life, Lucian gets to permanently use Light Slinger. Okay, whatever. Let's move on to skins and chromas. So we have Cosmic Matriarch Bel'Veth. Does Riot even understand what Bel'Veth is supposed to look like? I sure don't. I don't even know what they're going for with this champion anymore. It's like they clearly wanted to make a monster champion, but then they got like bored halfway through and then just tried to make her a normal champion, and now they're like stuck in between trying to do both things, and like it doesn't even make sense anymore. Like, what even is this? It's just like a blur of colors coming together. Like, here's kind of a wing, here's kind of a wing. I think this is kind of the mouth, but that's not even a mouth because it looks like they wanted to give a body to the female figure here, right? So now they kind of give it a body, so now it's not even a mouth, but now you've got like fangs from a mouth in the not mouth. But that's the mouth, right? Because here would be the eye, here would be the eye, so here's the mouth. But you see what I mean? It's like, Riot shouldn't have done Belveth the way they did Belveth. That was a mistake, right? Cosmic Paladin Naughty List. Naughty List is a Cosmic Paladin. I'm gonna have to see what that looks like in game because there's not much to go on here. Cosmic Paladin Scion. Once again, I'm gonna have to see how that looks in game. Cosmic Paladins Nunu and Willump. You know, you might not believe me, but I might have to see what this looks like in game. Dark Cosmic Erasure Jin. Wow, this skin looks like it's worth $200. What would you put the price tag on this skin? I would put the price at like $200. Honestly, this might even be worth like $400. Not gonna lie. Cosmic Matriarch Belveth. It looks better in game, I think, but it still kind of has the issue of like, I don't think Riot, like, fundamentally, I don't think Riot ever like fully drew out what Belveth is supposed to like look like. Like, they never did like a 3D design of like Belveth. So now she's got this really weird, inconsistent design where it's like she's like a manta ray, but it's just like flappy wings on a champion, you know? It just, right. Dark Cosmic. It looks good, but how did this become this? Facebook post right here. This is the Facebook photo. This is their Instagram post. This is what they look like when you meet them. This is what they post on their Twitter selfie. This is what they look like when you meet them. It's bad. Oh god. Instagram post when you meet them in person. Wow. Really? That just doesn't even look good. I'm sorry, dude. I hate it because like I don't want to be like shitting on their skins every single time. Like, I feel like every time I do a patch note video lately, I'm like shitting on their skins. I'm not trying to be like negative, but like, that looks really bad. Only maybe this one is decent. God, they look so bad. Okay, I think the problem here is they couldn't really bring out the effect they wanted. Like, you can see they clearly have this effect, this like whole space-time cosmic effect they were going for. But then when it came time to make the champion, they couldn't get it to like look that good in game. So I think the problem is we keep having all these champions that look weird. I mean, Nunu's pretty much looks like how he looks in the splash art, so at the very least it's not that bad, right? But it doesn't look as good, obviously. It just doesn't look as good. It's still a look though, I'll give you that. It's not doing anything for me. Not doing anything for me. That's it. Okay. Well, with that said, I guess that's it for the entire patch note. I'm going to say a special thank you to all my Patreon members. Oh, before I do that, I want to remind everyone, before you click off this video real quick too. Down below, I'm going to put a link to my variety channel. I'm obviously going to be streaming Starfield. I'm also going to do a Victoria 3 game later today. But mostly I'm going to be streaming Starfield later. So if you want to subscribe to my variety channel, if you want to look at that, you can do that. I'm going to do that because a lot of you guys are going to be going, Hashinshin, are you not streaming? Are you quitting League forever? No, I'm just trying to do other stuff with my life, man. I'll probably play League tomorrow, like the day before Starfield, to like see the different Aatrox builds. Maybe I'll do a video on that. But after that, I kind of just want to play Starfield. So I'm gonna be blunt with you guys. If you want to see me, please subscribe to my variety channel. you know, then you can watch me play that. Other than that, I'm gonna read out the name of my Patreon supporters. If you want to subscribe to me on Patreon, it is extremely helpful and beneficial to me. I like it a lot. You are an extremely nice person if you do that, because it helps me out immensely. I'll probably put the Patreon link down below too, so make it easy. Well, it's in the description. Anyway, subscribe to it. It helps me out. Yay! So thank you, Monica, Stefan Ortman, Deep the Heretic, T the Fish, Alex Tennant, Blazenrock, Christoph Marks, Guinea Shelbert, Horace the Burbagod, Ponto Rodriguez, Quill of Anguish, Tenshi Konoshiza, Destroy, Sebastian, Amzarine, Ben, Benji, Creador, Dengda, Daniel Fiala, Deruda, Yadgad, Flashholt, Fanaku, Full Yuki, Gwenmato, Hoon Arthur, Justicier, Calfo Zeramar, Kajubi, Ludwig III, Manuel, Metal M. Morgan, Negative KDA, Naxian Scion, OMG Clover, Oz, PB&J, Redaddy, Scorpion, Scott Shapiro, Suki, Terra, Uvo Plaja, Veno, Vivian, WLC League of Legends, Wolfman, and Jan. Also, if I do videos for my variety channel, I'm trying to like post those to Patreon first to like get feedback. So if you are a Patreon supporter, do like, I don't know if you guys get like notice for like Patreon posts or anything, but like I notice you guys never look at my Patreon page, probably because I like never post. But if you ever have any questions, anything like that, if you ever want an answer, just message me on Patreon. I always get back to those pretty quickly. So if you ever want advice or anything like that, you know, subscribe to my Patreon and message me there. Thank you to my YouTube members. Thank you to my Kick subscribers. Thank you, all of you. You're all wonderful, great people. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for leaving a comment on any of your thoughts. And I hope all of you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, everybody.